Of course, the building that stands out to us here up front and to the left-hand side, this massive skyscraper is the St. Regis. It is one of the newest skyscrapers in Chicago. It is the third tallest building in our city, and it is the world's tallest building designed by a woman, a Chicago female architect, Jeannie Gang. That's right, make some noise, Jeannie Gang. She designed the building to pay homage to Lake Michigan and the Chicago River. How did she do that? She chose different shades of blue for this building. So that's not just the light and glare. There are actual different colors, different shades of blue and green on that building. Also, she could have made those curves going in and out. She could have made those curves very smooth. But she chose to have that kind of rippling effect to mimic the rippling waters that you see here in front of you, the Chicago River. Very cool, right? Half of that building is very expensive units. Actually, I think I left my window open up there. No, but the other half is a hotel. So anybody can come and stay at the world's tallest building designed by a woman. Actually, do you guys see behind this triangle-shaped building? You guys see that building with the balconies, the curving balconies coming in and out? That building was also designed by Jeannie Gang. That building was the world's tallest building designed by a woman until she broke her own record with the St. Regis. Yeah. Real VIP. Jeannie Gang. Up ahead is Columbus Drive. It is one of the biggest bridges that we have here on the Chicago River. And all of these bridges that we're going to be going under, by the way, they all open up throughout the spring and fall months to allow big sailboats to go out into the lake. As we're going past this bridge on the right-hand side, do we see that clock tower? Clock tower there with beautiful white glazed terracotta. That building belongs to a very famous chewing gum company. That's right, that is correct. Wrigley Building. That family also owns the Chicago Cubs. That's where we get the name of that very historic stadium, Wrigley Field. But the family has since sold the team. There's another famous company that has their headquarters in that building. You guys might know it. Groupon. Groupon has their offices inside of the Wrigley Building. Up ahead is Michigan Avenue Bridge, recently renamed DuSable Bridge after Jean-Baptiste Point DuSable, Chicago's first permanent settler. If you go off to the right-hand side, you will be in the shopping district of Chicago, Michigan Avenue. It goes on for exactly 1 mile. That's right, the magnificent mile. All down there, Michigan Avenue. Alright guys, we're going under Michigan Avenue Bridge, and as we go past it, we're going to have to crank our necks way back to take a look at the top of the second tallest building in Chicago. But I always forget the name of this building. Just kidding. Each one of those letters is 20 feet tall. That is a Trump Tower. But we're going to have a better view of this building later on in the tour. I'll talk about it then a little bit more. Right now, I want to get your attention up front to the left-hand side. This is the old Jewelers building. You see the building with the dome on top, the cupola, the three corners there? A lot of famous movies have been filmed in the area. Transformers was filmed up there in that building. But also, right next to it is Wabash Avenue. That is the Jewelers District in Chicago. So they designed this building to have all of their offices. The idea was that a jeweler could start his day at home. Briefcase, hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of jewelry. He could drive to this building, go all the way up to the floor without ever having to leave his car. That's right, for security purposes, they designed this building with a car-sized elevator to hoist them all the way up to the designated floor. Now, right around the 1920s and 30s, guess what famous Chicagoan finds that security feature very useful for himself? Al Capone is correct. At the top dome, he had his private speakeasy. Headquarters and speakeasy. Alright guys, real quick, go ahead and take this picture looking straight up, show it to your friends and family. They won't even recognize it as a building at first, right? Marina City, private residences, with each having their own private balcony. But take a look at all this parking. Can you guys imagine parking in reverse all the way to the edge of the building? Only 2 times have cars come off the side of the building and into the Chicago River. But no worries. Both times it was for TV production. So one was for a movie with Steve McQueen, and the other time was for an Allstate Insurance commercial. But no CGI, they actually dumped the cars in there. Here we are to the left-hand side. Look inside the line of Chicago locals. Tiny Taps is a very popular spot on the river. Otherwise, Pizzeria Portofino, also on the river. Really cool, vibing spots that allow you to just hang out by the river and enjoy some great service. One of the oldest buildings that we will see on the river. This is the Reed Murdoch building. We have 6 bays of window to the right of the clock tower, but then only 5 bays of window to the left of the clock tower. The reason for that is because they knocked down this side of the building to build pedestrian sidewalks that weren't there before, and then they put that building, that part back up, try to match the other side. They can't get that past you guys, right? Up ahead is our Wells Street Bridge. We're about to go past that. And after we do, we are going to see one of the world's largest office buildings. Actually, I'm going to interrupt myself because here we are seeing one of our L trains going across. It's a great view of train traffic on top of car traffic, right next to pedestrian traffic. All of that below boat traffic as well. Here, guys, to the right-hand side. One of the largest office buildings in the world. Second only to the Pentagon. This building is so massive, it received its own zip code, the merchandise mark. Owned and operated by the Marshall Field Company for many, many years. Now guys, as we go past Franklin Street Bridge, we're going to open up. The Chicago River opens up here in what we call Wolf Point. And this is where we are about to see some of the newest skyscrapers in the city of Chicago. And here we are now entering Wolf Point. Once again, the view of our L train system going across the city. Like I said earlier, I don't know how much of you were able to hear, but train traffic on top of car traffic, next to pedestrian traffic, all of that with boat traffic going below that as well. Now, some of us are pointing at that building that looks like it's going to tip over at any second, right? That lot sat empty for many, many years. Nobody wanted to buy it because it was such a narrow lot. On one side you had train tracks, and then on this side you had the river. Not only that, the city said if you're going to build on the river, you actually have to set your building back to allow pedestrian access to the building. So nobody wanted to buy it, and a few years later some genius engineers came along and they said, we can actually design for that space. And so they did. They built up the base, that very narrow base of the building, and when they cleared the train tracks next to them and the river access on the other side, they flared out to maximize the square footage. coming up here on the right-hand side, here is a great view of this mega skyscraper. There we are, a good picture opportunity with the giant yellow boat on the river. There we are. All right, remember I was telling you guys about Samuel Insull. He was the gentleman that was responsible for all of these trains here in the city of Chicago, all of these railroad lines. He was also in charge of a lot of utilities, so he was the richest man in Chicago. But he also had a wife who sang opera. She was not very good because she didn't always get a lot of work. Well, he tells the city of Chicago, hey, you don't have an opera house. I will build an opera house for you. So long as my wife always has a job there. And sure enough, she worked there for the rest of her days, the rest of her life. The gift from Samuel Insull to the city of Chicago and his wife, the Civic Opera Building in Chicago. Massive building in the shape of a throne, right? You can imagine a giant sitting there in the middle with the two big armrests and a huge backrest as well. We'll talk about that kind of shape in a bit. But right now, we've all seen movies like Wolf of Wall Street, things like that, right? All that was inspired by places like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center. Here it is, up front and to your left-hand side. They have a training floor in the middle, and they didn't want a lot of columns in the middle of the construction so that they could see across the roof when their stocks were going up or down, when they wanted to buy or sell. So the two towers on either end actually support the roof of the trading floor in the middle. Chicago Mercantile Exchange Center. Now, once again, these trains all around the city of Chicago allowed for huge companies to come out of here. In 1973, the world's largest company, Sears and Roebuck, they wanted for their new headquarters the world's tallest building. So they hired Skidmore, Owings and Merrill architectural firm, and they gave them just that. It opened up in 1973, and it has the title of having the world's tallest building for the next 25 years, longer than any other building that has had that title since. Here we are coming into view. The closer we get, ladies and gentlemen, I give you the Sears Tower. Today with a different name, which Chicago locals choose not to acknowledge. Not to confuse anybody. Today this is the Willis Tower, but the naming rights are up for grabs in a couple of years. So it might stay Willis, it might change to something else. But we'll probably always still call it Sears Tower. That's right. Take a look at those 5 glass boxes. If you go up there on a clear day like today, you can see 4 states at the same time. That's right. But then, if you're brave enough, you can step over the edge of the building onto a glass platform, and you can look 103 stories down to the sidewalks below you. Okay. How many of you have actually gone up there? Did? Oh no, architectural firm. You guys know what the world's tallest building is today?
And we're gonna end this video.
Somebody said it, the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. That building was designed here in Chicago, Illinois, by the same architectural firm that designed the Sears Tower. Yep. So some of the more important buildings are still coming out of Chicago. The trains I was talking about earlier, here we can see that those rail lines are exposed. And all of these buildings that we see here actually have to pay air rights to the railroad line. They actually pay these railroads so that they can put a building above them.